Firstly, greeting you, honorable members, Honorable Chake Aduanis. Good morning. Good morning, Honorable Mbiko. Very good morning to Honorable Dr. Leklape. A very good morning as well to Honorable Polwane. A very good morning to Honorable Jasmine Peterson. A very good morning to the Honorable Deputy Minister of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. A very good morning as well to our acting DG and all officials on the platform. Let me also greet our own support team, Ms. Silly, Ms. Landu, Ms. Matthews, Ms. Levendal, and Mr. Van der Westhuizen. Colleagues, this morning's meeting starts a little bit early, and I apologize for that. As you know, we've got mini plenaries at 10 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, some of you are participating in those mini plenaries, but we thought it would be important to meet this morning to give our department an opportunity to table to us the CEDAW report. I will speak to that in a minute, but for now, I just want us to consider our agenda for this morning. Ms. Silly, can I hand over to you, please?
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members. In front of us, we have the agenda item, Chairperson. We'll be dealing with the CEDAW report, the consideration of the RSA 6th periodic report on the implementation of the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. And then there will be discussions, Chairperson, and then we will look at adopting the committee minutes and reports, and then closure. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Silly. Good morning, Honorable Adams. We are happy you've joined us this morning. Honorable members, that is the agenda. Please may I take a mover and a seconder? Colleagues.
Chair,
Honorable Mbiko.
I hereby move, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mbiko moves for the adoption of our agenda for this morning. Please may I have a seconder?
Chair.
Good morning, Honorable Peterson.
Morning, honorable members. Morning, Chairperson. Chair, I second.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, CEDAW, is a key international human rights instrument promoting and protecting the rights of women. It can be considered as a statement of minimum standards that governments need to meet to ensure that there's an end to discrimination and to promote gender equality. By ratifying CEDAW in December 1995, the South African government agreed to adopt and developed mechanisms to help protect the basic rights of women and to improve their status by eliminating gender-based discrimination. Our Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities tabled the South Africa 6th periodic report on the implementation of the Convention of Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women on 3 June 2026 as per the ATC, number 97 of 2026. South Africa submitted its initial report to CEDAW in 1998 and subsequently did a combined second, third, and fourth periodic report covering the period 1999 to 2008 that was submitted in 2009. Thereafter, the country's fifth report was due in 2015, but was only submitted in May 2019. The sixth report is due for submission to the Secretariat of the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Geneva by 30 June 2026. Given the tight time frames and looming deadline, the committee agreed to meet with the department this morning to receive the report or to be briefed by our department on the country report before they deposit it to the UN. However, I must point out, honourable members, that the report comes to us far too late. Cabinet has already approved the report, and therefore we will have no meaningful contributions to the report as the report has already been finalised and approved. So I hope that in future we will be able to rectify that so that this portfolio committee is able to have a meaningful impact in the report and obviously able to exercise our oversight. With that having been said, I will hand over to the DM if she would like to make any opening remarks.
Honorable Chairperson, good morning to you. Good morning to honorable members. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Let me also greet ADG and colleagues from the department. Chairperson, let me apologize that on your behalf that we could not meet in person. I must say that, Honorable Chair, the late notice did challenge us a little bit, given the fact that we had initially traveled with the team, so we've incurred expenses. If it may be our request that notices be shared in advance if there would be changes from physical to virtual meeting. But yeah, I thought I must just raise this with Honorable Chair and members of the Portfolio Committee. Otherwise, allow me really to begin by expressing my appreciation, Honorable Chair, to the committee and to yourself for convening this engagement on the South Africa's 6th periodic report on the implementation of the Convention on the Elimination of all forms of discrimination against women, which is commonly known as CEDAW. Maybe just to correct Honorable Chair, Cabinet did not approve the final document. It's approved to be brought to Parliament processes for further engagement and inputs. We are required as government to undergo our own internal government process in developing the report, and then that report be placed and be brought to the committee, to Parliament, but it needs to undergo our own internal government system, and that's why it needs to be presented to the executive before it can be brought to Parliament. So this bringing it here does not suggest that the Committee of Parliament does not have an opportunity to provide this necessary important inputs to finalize a country report. I must emphasize the point that a country report is made up by inputs of all various state contribution, because it then represents exactly that. And that's why the validation process and the finalization of it then be brought to Cabinet and brought to Parliament for that matter. So the report before the committee is more than just a treaty reporting obligation. It is really indeed an opportunity for democratic reflection for us as a constitutional democracy to assess the distance we have traveled in advancing the rights of women and to honestly confront the distance that still remains. So the report covers the period 2015 to 2024, a decade marked by significant progress, profound challenges, and important institutional reforms in the pursuit of gender equality. It arrives at a particular significant moment in our national journey. This decade was characterized, Madam Chair, by a profound disruption. The COVID-19 pandemic exposed and deepened existing inequalities, with women carrying complete disproportionate burden of job losses, unpaid care work, food insecurity, and vulnerability to violence. Economic stagnation, unemployment, and widening inequality placed additional pressures on households, with women often absorbing the social and economic consequences. And across the world and within our own society, we have also witnessed the rise of organized anti-gender, anti-human rights, and anti-democratic movements that seeks to roll back the hard-won gains under the guise of culture, religion, tradition, and nationalism. These movements are increasingly well-resourced, transnational, and coordinated. They target women's rights, sexual and reproductive health and rights, comprehensive sexuality education, the rights of LGBTI persons, and the broader human rights architecture that underpins constitutional democracies. Their objective is not merely to oppose specific policies, but to challenge the very principle of equality, inclusion, and human dignity, and upon which democratic society are built. So it is therefore important that we locate this report within this broader context. The struggle of women's rights today is not simply about extending rights where none exist. It is increasingly about defending rights that have already been won, strengthening institutions that protect those rights, and ensuring that equality moves beyond legislation into the lived experiences of women and girls. So this report reflects both dimensions of that struggle. It documents meaningful progress achieved by our democracy, while also reminding us that progress is never inevitable, and that every generation carries a responsibility to protect, deepen, and advance the gains secured by those who came before us. Honorable Chairperson, we have recently commemorated 30 years of democracy. 30 years since South Africa ratified CEDAW, and 30 years since the Beijing Platform and Declaration and a platform for action. These milestones, Honorable Chair, compels us to ask ourselves whether the promise of equality has translated into material improvement in the lives of women across our country. As government, we approach this report from the understanding that gender equality is not a sectoral issue. It is a developmental imperative that is central to economic growth, social cohesion, democratic participation, and human dignity. So our constitution reminds us that South Africa is founded on the very same fundamental values of human dignity, equality, and the advancement of human rights and freedoms. It is therefore fitting that this report demonstrates the steps taken by government to strengthen legal protection, advance women's representation, improve access to justice, expand economic opportunities, and combat gender-based violence and femicide. The report outlines progress in areas such as the implementation of the gender-responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, evaluation, and auditing framework. The report touches on the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. It also reflects on the establishment of the National Council of Gender-Based Violence and Femicide and measures to really strengthen women's participation in political and economic life. Honorable Chairperson, the report also reflects government's effort to implement the priorities articulated in the medium-term strategic framework and now the medium-term development plan, both of which recognize women, youth, and persons with disability across cutting priorities of the developmental state. These interventions are aligned with our constitutional obligations and our broader commitment to building an inclusive society where no one is left behind. At the same time, this report does not shy away from the realities confronting women in South Africa. It acknowledges that women continue to bear the burden of poverty, unemployment, and economic exclusion. It reminds us that GBV remains one of the greatest threats to women's freedom and security. So the report also identifies the gaps, the capacity constraints, and uneven service delivery that continues to undermine the full realization of women's rights, particularly for women in rural communities, poor households, women with disability, women who are young, and other marginalized groups. This honestly strengthened the credibility of the report. And as government, we recognize that legislation alone cannot transform societies, policies alone cannot dismantle patriarchy, and institutions alone cannot eradicate inequality. So transformation requires implementation, Madam Chair. It requires accountability. It requires resources. It requires sustained political leadership and societal mobilization. As the department responsible for driving the national agenda on women, youth, and persons with disability, we understand that the struggle for women's emancipation is inseparable from the broader struggle to deepen democracy, build an inclusive economy, and advance social justice. Our mandate requires us to coordinate, monitor, advocate, and ensure that priorities of women, young people, and persons with disability are mainstream across the work of the state. It is in this context that the department continues to support accelerated action on women's economic participation and gender-based violence, including gender-responsive governance, representation in decision-making, and the eradication of gender-based violence as stated. Madam Chair, the significance of this report extends beyond compliance with an international convention. It is a measure on how effectively the state is transforming constitutional rights into lived reality. It asks whether freedoms have been reached to the young women seeking employment, whether justice has been reached to the survivor of violence, whether economic opportunity has been reached to women entrepreneurs, workers, farmers, informal traders, and whether equality is being experienced by women in villages. Importantly, Madam Chair, the report also provides Parliament with a concrete oversight instrument because CEDAW cuts across education, health, justice, policing, employment, social development, economic development, rural development, local government, and many other areas of state responsibility. This can assist the Portfolio Committee in holding line function department accountable for the commitments, gaps, and areas of competence reflected in the report. So we must be empathetic to state that the department cannot implement gender equality alone. Our role is to coordinate, monitor, and advocate, but that practical delivery of many of these commitments sits across the state. The report therefore enables Parliament to ask each responsible department what it has done and also what it has not done, what resources has been allocated, what measurable progress is being made to advance the rights of women in the areas. I therefore welcome the committee's scrutiny, guidance, input, and oversight as we consider this report together. Parliamentary oversight remains one of the most important mechanisms through which we strengthen accountability, Madam Chair, and ensure that South Africa's commitment to women are translated into measurable outcome. So my chairperson and honorable members, the department values the constructive partnership that exists between Parliament and the executive in advancing the rights and empowerment of women. And indeed, Minister is not here because she had to travel to New York for the COPS meeting. And this is why she's not available in today's meeting. And it is with these words, I would like to really, through you, Chairperson, to take this moment to invite the Acting Director General and the department team to take the committee through the content of South Africa's sixth periodic report on the implementation of CEDAW for your consideration and your input. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, DM, and thank you very much for those opening remarks. I also wish to welcome Honourable Kunu and Ms. Abrams. Let me extend an apology to you, DM, and your team for the late change in our meeting details. Unfortunately, as you know, Fridays are not easy days for our committee, also because we've got many plenaries. And when we did we had a discussion with members and found some were unwell, some were writing exams, and others needed to participate in the mini plenaries. I didn't want to have a situation where you come and then there are no members to interact with this very important report. That having been said, please do accept my apology, DM. Over to you, Acting DG.
Honorable Chairperson, and honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, Deputy Minister, and colleagues on the platform, good morning. Indeed, Honorable Chair, we from the department, we wish to also add on the remarks made by the Deputy Minister to thank the Portfolio Committee to engage us on the report as it was submitted. The Deputy Minister has indeed provided the executive framing of the report. And from the department, we wish to emphasize that the CEDAW report processes is not a compliance exercise only for international reporting only. It does help to hold us accountable as a state and to be able to align with our constitutional obligation, in particular when we're looking at the rights to equality and the duty to advance women who continue to experience systemic discrimination. The report does confirm that South Africa has strong legal and policy foundation. However, the real test remains in implementation, coordination, budgeting, monitoring, and consequence management across the state. The department therefore sees CEDAW as an accountability instrument that must help sharpen government-wide planning, gender-responsive budgeting, service delivery, and reporting. The key risk is that women empowerment and gender equality may remain well expressed in policy, but unevenly implemented across departments, across provinces, as well as municipalities and public entities. This is why the department, even with the constrained resources, continue to strengthen the gender-responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, and evaluation framework. We still are continuing to urge the improvement around availability of disaggregated data and work with National Treasury, DPME, StatsSA, AGSA, and sector department to institutionalize gender mainstreaming in the machinery of government. Honorable members, the department accept that the reporting must translate into visible change of the lives of women and girls, as the DM has said, especially those that are affected by the triple challenges of our country: poverty, unemployment, and inequalities, including issues of gender-based violence, disability, rural exclusion, and weak access to economic opportunity. The department therefore welcomes the committee's oversight, guidance, and recommendation. This will assist in strengthening the national response, closing implementation gap, and ensuring that South Africa's CEDAW commitment are embedded in the planning, budgeting, delivery, and accountability system. I must add that we have credibility in terms of the data that we've utilized for this report, as is the data also that we have utilized to submit our SDG report, the Beijing 30+ report, as well as the 30-year country review report. So in terms of the quality and credibility of the report, we can rest in the knowledge that we have utilized validated and credible information for this report. With that, Chair, may I allow Mr. Tibulawi Mokwebo, who is the head of the research in the department, to take us through the actual specifics in the presentation. Over to you, sir.
Good morning, Chairperson and honorable members, Deputy Minister, Acting DG. I will be taking the committee through the report as it is. Most of the information I won't have to go back to, because our honorable chairperson has provided, a detailed background as to where we come from with regard to the CEDAW report. What I can indicate is to say that our report covers the period 2015 to 2024, as alluded by the Deputy Minister. And then the report covers the 16 articles of the convention, as well as the concluding observations and recommendations emanating from the 5th periodic report. So if you look at the convention itself, it has about 30 articles, and then member states are supposed to report on 16 for the first 16 articles, and then the last from 17 to 30, those are the articles that provide the CEDAW committee the mandate of interacting and engaging with member states. For us, the report highlights in Article 1, it looks at the issue of the definition of discrimination against women. And then what we have done as the department, we had engaged with our counterparts or our sister department from the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to look at how South Africa has, addressed the question of defining the discrimination. And we had realized that it is indeed provided for in the Constitution of the Republic, as well as the anti-discriminatory law, which is our PEPUDA, which provides the definition in its extensive nature, and providing for instances where the issue of definition of discrimination is considered to be discrimination in itself. And then in Article 2 of the report, we have provided detailed information on policy measures that we have adopted to eliminate discrimination against women, which also it looks at the issue of the different tribunals to ensure the judicial protection, including the National Gender Machinery, specifically the role that gets to be played by our Commission for Gender Equality, which has the mandate of monitoring and also holding us to account on some of the violation of human rights of women, and also the role that gets to be played by our South African Human Rights Commissions. These are the bodies that are there to assist us to ensure that the human rights of women are protected, and to guarantee the basic human rights and fundamental for freedom. We had to report under Article 3, and then we had to provide for specifically the measures that we've put in place to promote and protect equality and discrimination. And the first one being the gender responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring and evaluation, which has been adopted by which was adopted by Cabinet in 2019, and the Deputy Minister has alluded to this. This is an instrument that is helping us as the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities to ensure that the whole of government make sure that starting from their planning processes, they ensure that their plans are responsive to the needs and interests of women, the youth, and those with disabilities. And then from there, we ensure that departments also ensure that they provide budgets to ensure that those commitments are realized. So we do provide detailed information in the report as to how this process of gender responsive budgeting, monitoring and auditing is being monitored and assessed throughout the different spheres of government. And then also the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. It's one other instrument one other plan that has been put in place to protect the rights of women, more especially when it comes to issues of safety. But it's not only about safety, it also promotes issues of economic power, because the National Strategic Plan itself, it has the different pillars which addresses different components, which not only looks at the issue of protection against violence, but also empowerment of women themselves. And then also the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide Act, also it's one other critical legislation that has been put in place to ensure that we establish the National Council, which will also ensure that our fight against violence on women and girls is strengthened. And then the strengthening of the three major legislations on gender-based violence is one of those issues that we have reported on as a progress that we have made in terms of putting together the legislative framework. And we have reflected again on the medium-term strategic framework 2019 to 2024, which covers the period where we are reporting. Because in that plan, we had ensured that the issues of mainstreaming the needs and interests of women, we had ensured that it's a cross-cutting issue, and that a stance that we had adopted, during the 2019-2024 financial year or MTF year. We have also adopted it now on the MTDP to ensure that the issues of mainstreaming women, youth, and persons with disabilities are cross-cutting issues. Under Article 4, we looked at temporary measures to promote the issues of the empowerment of women. And also we did speak about the role that the framework is playing. But specifically, we had looked at the work that the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, the National Treasury, the Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, Statistics South Africa is playing when it comes to issues of piloting the gender responsive budgeting, wherein we have successfully managed now to issue a gender budget statement, which looks at tracking the issue of the finances or the budget that gets to be allocated to promote the needs and interests of women, more especially when we look at the issues of women's endowment and also the issues that talks to the promotion and the needs of women. So those are that is one of the area that we have reported on to say that is one of the progress that we've made. The issue of the 40% procurement target, it's also another important step towards the realization of women's rights of women, and also the Public Procurement Act 28 of 2024, and also in the structures such as the Women's Economic Assembly on the role that it's playing in promoting and also ensuring that women-owned and led businesses are also profiled and connected to different markets. We have reported on the role that the Way Corner is playing. The National Empowerment Fund having a dedicated funding that focuses on women-owned entrepreneurs is one of the areas that we've reported, and we've also provided detailed information, more especially when it comes to data on the number of women or percentage of women that have benefited from the National Empowerment Fund, which shows here in the graph that it's being depicted here that there has been a considerable growth in terms of the percentage of women that have or the funding that has been allocated to Black women businesses from 26.39 in 2021 to 43.83 in 2025, which shows a good progress. However, when it comes to the issues of the total spend from the public service on women-owned businesses, that's one of the area that the report has highlighted as a challenge, because we can see that from 2021 we were at 14.12%, and now in 2025-26 we are just about 17%, which doesn't show good progress when it comes to empowering women-owned and women-led businesses. So that is one of the areas that we have highlighted to say it requires specific attention and intervention to ensure that we indeed ensure that women are benefiting, more especially when it comes from issues of procurement from our own state-owned funds. When it comes to issues of sex role stereotyping and prejudice, we've reported this under Article 5, more especially when it comes to issues of the prioritizing the acceleration of prosecution of gender-based violence and femicide cases in the country. And then we have reported on incidences of contact crime against women aged 18 years and above, which remains a challenge. This we can see that, over the past each and every quarter, or about 12,000 sexual offenses are reported quarterly, which means that this is one of the challenge. And the biggest challenge here is that rape constitutes about 80% of those sexual offenses cases that gets to be reported. But also we have provided information on the issues of the conviction rate. One of the worrying factor here on the conviction rate, it's looking at the number of cases that we are indicating as issues of the prosecution rate. which doesn't correspond much to the issues of reported cases. The trafficking on women or trafficking in women and exploitation of prostitution is one of the areas that we had to report on, more especially when it comes to issues of cases that have been reported and those women that have been assisted when it comes to being rescued from trafficking. We have indeed provided information on the number of cases that have been enrolled that specifically addresses issues of trafficking in women. And then on political and public life, we have shown that there has been progress, but we've also identified that this is one area where we have also seen regression, more especially when it comes to women representation in cabinet, where in the previous, in 2019 to 2024, we have been reporting strongly that we have reached 50% and now we have regressed to about 44%. On international relations, we have provided information, more especially with regard to the National Action Plan on Women, Peace and Security, which outlines our commitments to advance women's meaningful participation. On the Article 9, it reports on issues of nationality, which talks to protection of the nationality of all citizens of South Africa. But this gets to be done through the issues of having the identity document, which gets to be acquired during birth registration. We have highlighted here some of the challenges with regard to issues of registration, of birth registration, because we still do have some of the women who have children that don't have required documentation that should assist them to gain at least some of the interventions that our government have placed for them. And then we have reported on issues of the new marriage bill and the 2024 amendment to the Marriage Act in as far as the protection of women, more especially those in Indian and Hindu marriages. Under education, this is one of the areas that we have reported good progress, more especially when it comes to issues of gender parity, but we still do have some of the challenges, more especially when it comes to translation of some of the gains that we have had in education, more especially when it comes to the graduation rate and transition to work or to employment. And then Article 11, it looks at employment opportunities and then also the challenge of high unemployment rate of women, and also the wage discrimination is one of the areas that we have highlighted as challenge. On the issues of access to health, we have provided for information, more especially to access or to sexual and reproductive health rights. So those are some of the issues that we have highlighted. And then Article 13 on economic empowerment of women and social benefits, more especially the right to pay family benefit and right to participate in recreational activities and sports and all aspects of cultural life. Some of the challenges that we have also highlighted on issues that women in sports faces, more especially when it comes to issues of the remuneration. And then rural women empowerment, there we have also highlighted some of the challenges with regard to access to the services in some of the areas. And then the equality of the law, we have provided for different legislations. And the last article, marriage and family life, we do provide that women's rights, more especially to assets and resources. However, the challenge that, women still lacks when it comes to issues of access to credits and loans. And then in summary, we have highlighted that we have made progress with regard to issues of legal and policy reforms, representation, access to justice, economic inclusion, and education and health, and also parliamentary and institutional oversight, as highlighted by the Deputy Minister as well as the Acting DG. Areas that requires improvement that we have highlighted as challenges is issues of the employment and economic participation of women, the issues of regression when it comes to representation in leadership, and also the issues of expenditure on women-owned businesses. We cannot shun away from highlighting the issue of of gender-based violence, which has now been declared a national disaster. So In conclusion, we can indicate that we have made meaningful progress in advancing gender equality, particularly through the legislation, and then also persistent challenges which continue to hinder the full realization of rights, includes the gender-based violence, economic inequality, limited access to resources for rural and marginalized women, and also gaps in effective implementation and accountability. Chairperson, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair and DM. We do submit. Thank you.
And thank you, ADG. Over to you, back to you, Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you very much, DM. Thank you, Acting DG. Thank you to the department. Honourable members, now is your opportunity to interact with the report that we have received. I would like to take your hands. So please do raise them, honourable members.
Chairperson, you will recognize my hand. I'm unable to raise. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chauke Adonis. Okay, I see the hand of Dr. Okay, wonderful, colleagues. We will start with Dr. Leklape. We will then go to the Honourable Chauke Adonis. We will then go to the Honourable Polwane. And from there, we will give Honourable Kaula an opportunity. Start with you, Doc.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just provide proof of life for bandwidth. I will switch the video off. My first comments are about the sequencing of the reporting. It becomes difficult when you have a report that comes to us that has already been approved by Cabinet. If there are things that would like corrected, what happens there? Does it then go back to Cabinet? So that I would suggest that going forward, that we engage with the report first before it goes to Cabinet. And now that there's a period where we missed a 5-year cycle, we delayed the report by more than 5 years, which means we reported after another period had passed, that the preparation of the report should start on the 1st of July this year, after you've handed in the report by the 30th of June. The second issue is that in your conclusion, you spoke about strides that you have made about gender equality. We have a Chapter 9 institution for gender equality that we are not utilizing. It is quite interesting that in our constitution, Chapter 2 is the Bill of Rights. But in Chapter 9, we have a commission for gender equality. And a lot of the issues that we raise pertain to the inequality between the genders. And that Chapter 9 institution is not being properly resourced, is not being properly utilized, because it should have a key role in the development of this report. It should be the watchdog of the development of this report, so that all of us should be watched by them in terms of this report being prepared. The Minister of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability, or the ministry, under the directorship of the Minister and the Deputy Minister, should be the lead people in ensuring that a report led by CGE with concurrence with the department is laid in front of this committee long before it is due. If we're working on a 5-year cycle, there should be a midpoint where an interim report gets presented to this committee 2 to 3 years before it is due, so we can work on the issues that CEDAW would have raised with us to fix. The issue of Ukutwala, it's still, iffy. There's no clarity about its criminalization in this country, despite what has been said. So we need to ensure that the inequality of women in the foundations of our society is addressed in the home, in the marriage, in religious institutions, in traditional structures, in the workplace, in leisure environments, sports, culture, in education, in political leadership. In this country, we have a president and a vice president. We've never had a female president or a female vice president ab initio. We've had 2 female vice presidents that have come in times of trouble. They were never vice president from inception. So those are the issues, Chair, that we need to ensure that we deal with. We should understand the difference between rights and equality. There are issues in this report on the justice piece where progress has not been made. I can tell you, being a survivor of femicide, that we have never had an ounce of support from the state in our predicament. The only time we got support from the state was in preparation for the trial. But for dealing with the ordeal, not an ounce. So the fact that we're talking about the support improving, no. Lives of women are not taken seriously. We default to minimum sentencing for femicide. The minimum sentence is quite low. So even on the justice piece, we're really not doing well. So we need to ensure that all these issues are not issues about reporting. There has to be a program of action about the activities that have been highlighted to us as areas of weakness, where we have programs of actions of how we're going to deal with those issues, with timelines, with consequence management for officials and executives that are responsible for those sectors. Otherwise, we will never make any progress on these issues. We will just be a paper tiger that's more concerned about reporting than doing. So, Chair, I am hoping that we will engage, we will have a meeting after in the next parliament session, where we talk about how we're going to deal with this going forward. Not when they come back for us to write the report, but an agreement of a program of action of what are the areas that need to be dealt with, how are we going to deal with them, and what is going to be the periodic reporting to this committee by who, so that we are the ones that are part of the preparation of the report that goes to cabinet. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Dr. Letlape. We fully align with those comments. That's why I said in my introduction that we don't want to be consulted at the tail end of the reporting process, but we want to be a part of this on an ongoing basis, a yearly in-year monitoring of the issues, and that would be important going forward so that we're part of the process throughout and not just consulted before it needs to be deposited. I'm now I see your hand, Honorable Mkhunu. You will also be at the end. I'm going to hand over to Honorable Chauke Adonis.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and greetings to honorable members and to our officials that have joined us, and the Deputy Minister, Steve Letsege, and everyone who's joining us on various platforms. Let me start off by appreciating the presentation that has been made to the Portfolio Committee. And I would like to also just align myself with what Honorable Dr. Letlape has articulated in terms of perhaps the formula or the format in which reports of this nature are presented to the Portfolio Committee ahead of time, for better consultation and for us to have a greater input into where we see the reporting status being aligned with the lived realities of South African citizens, but also ensuring that the information is still of relevance and it speaks to it being of real time as well. But also notwithstanding the fact that it also reflects the various developments and achievements that have been made on issues of gender equality, justice, and protection of women in South Africa, especially since the dispensation of democracy as well. It is unfortunate that the report was delayed, and perhaps we need to also have an understanding and being taken into confidence as a portfolio committee and as South Africans as to what has created and caused for the report to have this particular delay. But I think it's also equally important for us to realize what are the implications of a report being submitted late, if I am correct, and when there are any forms of delays, what does that look like? What are the implications of the information that is then provided, the accuracy, and also in terms of us being a member state on these international bodies as well. Chair, I would like to also just find out, in terms of what has been articulated and reported, especially on issues of gender responsive, policies and budgeting, one has an appreciation and understanding in terms of the reality that gender responsive budgeting, yes, is there in paper, but is not practiced in principle throughout all spheres of government. And perhaps what should be articulated coming outside of reports of this nature is a strategic framework that speaks to how we can better improve our action plan on achieving a better target outcomes that are more sustainable and tangible in the long term. And what are the consequence managements that would then be proposed by the department that is then the custodian of issues of this nature, which would be the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, also aligning itself with the DIRCO at the same time, and also this particular portfolio committee. And I think that's important in order for us to say what needs to be done at a legislative or policy point of view that will force and will enforce some of the resolution and legislations that are being passed in the National Assembly, proposed also by members of parliament, portfolio committees, the public, and our departments that seeks to strengthen the ability to execute the targets that have been outlined. Gender, as I was saying, gender responsive budgeting, it's in paper, but not in practice. What are the stats? And I think we would request that in another session, we be given for each of the targets that have been outlined, especially those where we have said that there has been significant progress and those where we are saying that we're still behind, the procurement set aside for women, etc. What have been some of the challenges and how do we seek to mitigate those, working with all spheres of government in ensuring that we're able to meet those particular targets that have been outlined, because South Africa currently is on the tail end of progress, despite the significant legislative advances that have been made, but we have not had the ability to really enforce some of these legislations and policy into practice. Chair, I think we also just look at the issues that have been raised and lifted in terms of the different sectors and some of the significant progress within those various sectors. But one would also want to highlight, is this reflective of the true nature of the lived realities of the majority of those belonging to that sector? And when these reports are compiled, we do understand that they come from different institutions, entities, departments, so that the information is accurate and aligned. But also when these reports are submitted, are they submitted on a quarterly, annually, or do they come in once there is a request that this report then needs to be compiled and consolidated for finalization, so that they could be a tracking tool that allows for us to say whether we are still on the right path in terms of our international obligations and commitments, and who needs to be held accountable, what needs to be changed, and where intervention might be necessary before the report then is compiled and taken through to cabinet for finalization, so that South Africa can see significant progress and change ultimately. And I think, just as I close, Chairperson, on my end, it would be, I re-emphasize the element of the better consultation, and perhaps they can give us a reflection in terms of some of the other portfolio committees and departments that have made their contribution in this regard, and what have been some of the extractions from that in terms of shaping what has been put in this particular report. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chauke Adonis. I will hand over to Honourable Polwane.
Chair, before you move on, apologies, Chair. I just wanted to indicate, sorry, Chair. I just wanted to indicate that from when Dr. Letlape was speaking, I just did not want to interrupt him. There is a member, perhaps the mic is unmuted, it does sort of distort the sound. If we can ask that
Yes,
we do mute ourselves. Thank you.
I actually think it was Honorable Polwane and Honorable Kapisa at the same time. So Kapisa, just please mute yourself until it's your opportunity to speak. Up next is Honorable Polwane. It's your opportunity, ma'am.
Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity, and good morning, Chair, our honorable members, our DM, the support staff, the acting DG, and all the staff. Chair, firstly, let me join my colleague to welcome the presentation. It is a straightforward presentation, but I have few questions for clarity, even though I'm partially covered by the first two speakers. Maybe the first one, I hear that the discrimination against women, there are policies, measures, Human Rights Commission are there to protect the right of women. Is there a monitoring tool that can assist the Department of Women with Persons with Disability to monitor the process? Because we want to know exactly what's happening. And then the next thing, that is why I'm saying I'm partially covered. The issue of ukutwala in our area, Limpopo, Gaspeli, girls are forced to marry to their relatives, e.g., the uncle or rahadi. Is there any intervention? Maybe Dr. Letlape already covered it, but I just want to check if there is any intervention because I did not hear. The last issue, Chair, issue of domestic workers that are not registered with the UIF is still a challenge. Is there any?
Kapisa, please mute, Kapisa.
Issue of domestic workers that are not registered with the UIF is still a challenge. Is there any strategy or strategy in place that can use to monitor the or monitoring tool that can assist the Department of Women with Disability? Because most of them are women, but they don't register with the UIF. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Polwane. Honorable Kaula, now's your opportunity. Mam Kaula, it's now your opportunity.
Hello.
Kapisa.
Chair. Are you hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. The presentation. Okwami nje ngizothi qapu ngijahile ngihamba. Lana sinenkinga yalento yokuthwala. Okutholakala ukuthi still isaqhubeka emakhosini naleyo kungenwa. Bengazi ukuthi mina even eKZN lezi zinto zikhona ziyenzeka. Bengazi ukuthi siyaqhubeka ekube sesinesikhathi esikhuluma ngendaba yokungenwa naleyo kuthwalwa. Mawunkosikazi ufuna ukungena ukuze ukwazi ukuthola amafendoda or noma uthola umhlaba naleyo ukuthi if wena umuntu wesifazane awushadile or umhlaba wakini lo amakhosi athi ngeke ukwazi ukuthola indawo yakini noma ubekwe endaweni ngenxa yokuthi wena awushadile ayikho indoda. Ngidlule lapho ngibuyele kule yama case engaso ixoxa kuzobe yinini. Kunama case la kade ngangiwa reporter lama case othola ukuthi ubaba uboshelwe amacala rape kuthiwa wa rape ingane ngenxa yezingabona kababa noma bezilwa ngengane. Nginama case inqwabe engangikhuluma ngawo abantu abadonsa ama life sentence ingane yasho ukuthi mina ngikaze ngirishwe kodwa still zonke lezi zinto ivele izithelwa amanzi emhlanje nje ewedada. Izinto zonke lezi engifuna ukwazi kokwenzeka nini sibone izinto esixoxa ngazo eParliament ezenzeka. EWestville nginenqwaba yama case athinta umtolo athinta umthandeni shange okwakuthiwa ubulela umuntu engambulalanga. Ngifuna ukwazi ukuthi ngempela kanti kuphi la thina esiyokhuluma khona human right usebenza kuphi sengigcina la kunalento ekhona yokulwa kwabantu bangaphakathi nabangaphandle kunezingane nabantu besifazane esebelale iminyaka noma ngizothi izinyanga thina sisebenzisa ubuningi esizulwini. Angikaze ngibone human right eyalapha eyobalekelela to make sure ukuthi aba-rape, aba-racial or aba-rapani baphila kanjani nezingane. Ezinye izinto uthi le nto kulo sixoxa kumina angiyiboni isebenzela. Ngiyabonga.
Ngiyabonga Kapisa, Mama Mqunu, Klonishwa.
Thank you so much, Chair. Ngibingelele wonke amalunga akhona ne-department ekhona. Umbiko uyavuma ukuthi abesifazane basemakhaya basabhekene nobuphofu obukhulu, ukuhlupheka, ukubandlululwa, ukushiwa ngaphandle kumathuba avelayo kanye nokungakwazi nje ukufinyelela ngokugcwele ezinsizeni zikahulumeni bakude nazo ayifike eduzane. Umbuzo-ke uthi sikade vele sasikhuluma le ndaba. Umbuzo enginawo-ke namhlanje uthi ngemuva kweminyaka engaphezulu kuka-30 yentando yeningi, kungani abesifazane basemakhaya besengabanye babantu abahlwempu kakhulu nabasengozini enkulu eNingizimu Afrika ngezinto eziningi ezenzeka emakhaya? Kungabe asikho yini isabelo mali sikazwelonke ababekelwe sona ngqo ukuthuthukisa nokuxhasa abesifazane basemakhaya? Ngiyabonga Chair, covered by Honorable Leklape, so I won't waste time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mqunu. I just wanted to ask, in terms of the feedback that we got from the 5th report, there was a recommendation for to establish a standing interministerial committee for the coordination of women's rights, reporting obligations, and a follow-up implementation of the committee's recommendation. Was this responded to in the 6th report? I know that there was also ongoing concerns in terms of the training of judges on gender-based violence issues, whether that was adequately addressed in the 6th report. In the 6th report, we also needed to address the issue of strengthening victim support services, whether that was adequately addressed. Then with regard to your reporting deadline, we know that the deadline is 30 June, but has that always been the submission date for this 6th report? Honorable Chalke Adonis did raise it. Or are we late again? Was there perhaps an earlier deadline that we needed to meet? And then with regards to your, we know that you are dependent on other departments for information in order to collate the state report. And to this end, you have previously indicated to us that sometimes you struggle with other departments who do not provide information to you on a timeous basis. Was this again the case? And if so, which departments are the serial offenders in this regard? Then with regards to stakeholder engagements and shadow reports, how do you, as a department, deal with shadow reports? And yes, I think I will leave it there for now. If we do need to follow up, we'll get more responses. I'll hand over to you, Acting DG. Kapisa, you need to mute, please. Kapisa, please mute.
No, Chair. Nginenkinga, got a problem with this phone, but
Okay.
I'm going to try it.
Okay, no, don't cut it because you need to hear your responses. But just,
Okay,
just try to mute yourself. Acting DG, let me hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We will respond in segment. I will ask Retibu and then I'll follow and then we will also allow the TM.
Thank you so much, honorable members. Allow me to first thank the honorable members for the constructive inputs and also the questions that have been raised. The first question, I think, was raised by Dr. Honorable Dr. Litlape on the issue of the sequencing of the reporting, which we take note, and I think as a department we will improve on that. With regard to the reporting cycle, indeed, our fifth reporting report was considered by the CEDAW committee in November 2021. Thereby, they gave us 5 years to say we needed to report after 5 years, and then we were given the submission date, which meant that we needed to cover the years as articulated in the report, so which is aligned to the CEDAW reporting processes, because in line with the CEDAW reporting processes, member states are supposed to be reporting each and every 4 years or when they are requested to submit a report by the CEDAW committee itself. It therefore means that even after depositing this report now in June 30th, we will only be notified of when we will be expected to provide our next report by the CEDAW committee. They will provide us with timeline, because following the submission of the fifth periodic report, there has been different engagements that we have had with the CEDAW committee itself, whereby they were sending written questions that we needed to answer to, and we had done throughout the years. And some of the issues that have been raised by honorable members, we had covered them in those questions that have been advanced by the committee itself. And then the issue of the Commission on Gender Equality, indeed the Commission of Gender Equality has a role to play, which is to monitor the work that we do, and also to look as to whether our reporting process did indeed follow the correct channel. So the report that the Commission for Gender Equality produces is the report that will go along with the report that we have prepared or that we are finalizing here. The issues of Ukutwala and also the criminalization thereof has been the issues that, yes, indeed, we acknowledge it was raised in the previous report and also in the follow-up questions that have been advanced by the CEDAW, and we had provided report when in collaboration with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development, more especially when it comes to how the issues of Kutwala is being addressed through the different legislations, more especially even now the current marriage bill, which also talks to the minimum age of marriage, which is at 18 years. One need to be done is to ensure that there is proper monitoring, more especially when it comes to issues of the age of marriage. We also do acknowledge, I think, the important input that have been put by Honorable Dr. Litlape, more especially when it comes to us as the department ensuring that the key emerging issues and challenges that are highlighted in the sixth periodic report needs to have at least a program of action that we need to ensure that it has timelines that needs to be looked at. Honorable Chauke, on the issue of, I think, the GRPBMEA, we do report in the report or provide information as to what the department and the whole of our government is doing in terms of responding to issues of gender responsive budgeting, planning, monitoring, and evaluation, more especially with regard to the departmental strategic and annual plans. Then what the department is doing now, we are receiving biannual reports by the national departments with regard to the implementation of this. And then also we have the reporting on the implementation on the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, which is reported each and every monthly, and then this report gets to be consolidated by the department. Yes, indeed, we do acknowledge the issue of reflecting the lived experiences of women on the ground, more especially those that lives in rural areas. I think the report in itself, we have highlighted that we have done well in putting some of the good legislations, but the translation into the real lived experience is one of the challenges that we have also highlighted. I think we have indeed, with regards to the issues of consultations, we have ensured that we do have different consultation, more especially with the academia and also with the civil society organizations. We started this consultation in 2025, wherein we looked at the concluding observations that emanated from the fifth periodic report and also concluding observation from other international report, and ensure that different stakeholders indicate some of the role that they are playing. And then now also when we are developing this, we've had different consultative sessions, and part of consultation has been the gazetting of this report for comments by different stakeholders, wherein after the publication in the Government Gazette, we have sent a notification to all the stakeholders to request them to provide written inputs to the report. And we have received some of the inputs from other a civil society organization, some of whom have even asked us as to how and they should be providing the inputs into the report, and we have been providing guidance to them as to how they can provide inputs on the report itself. I think the issue of the ukuthwala of girls and forced marriages, we have addressed it. The issues of domestic workers and the issue of registration with the UIF, I think it's one of the issues that the department as well have picked up on. If you will realize, you will look at our chairship of the economy of the empowerment of women working group during the G20 presidency, wherein we identified this under the issue of paid and unpaid care work, wherein we had also indicated that, or committed to say that we will be developing the national strategy on paid and unpaid care work, which will be bringing in issues of domestic workers, more especially the issues of registration, which I think the mandate cuts across a number of many other government departments, which we are also including in the development of this strategy that we are working on. I think we do acknowledge the questions that have been advanced or raised by Honorable Kaula, more especially on the issues of the cases that have not moved. I think we have highlighted under one of the articles that, we do have a number of cases that gets to be reported, but when we are reporting on issues of conviction rate, I think the numbers that we have are very low. So we have acknowledged that. And then also we do note the inputs by Honorable Mkunu on the issues that have been, I think, raised. But on the issues of the establishment of the Interministerial Committee on International Reporting, the department has been working with the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development to ensure that there is one IMC on international reporting as a whole that gets to be convened and that gets to be established. This process has been taken through the government, the cabinet, the cluster processes, and then we are just awaiting for finalization of the establishment of the IMC. But already we do have the issues of the IMC, more especially when it comes to issues of the implementation of the National Strategic Plan on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, which is operational, and also at the technical level, we do have the technical IMC, which constitutes of the key core departments that are responsible for the implementation of the different components or pillars of the National Strategic Planning. And then with regard to the questions on the training of judges, this has been one of the questions that came in as advanced question that we had, and follow-up question by the CEDAW committee that we had provided for in 2024. In 2024, we had responded in collaboration with the National Prosecution Authority as well as the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. And on issues or on the question of strengthening the victim support services, the report do provide the information regarding the effort that is being done, more especially also on putting in the number of shelters that have been put in place to ensure that the victims gets also some of the support that are not there. And then with regard to the issue of shadow report as to how the department deals with this, I think for us, the main important thing have been to ensure that when we do the consultative process, we ensure that we are inclusive of all the different sectors and all the different stakeholders to ensure that their input gets to be considered in the report. As we are speaking now, some of the organization that would probably be submitting their shadow report, they had reached us to indicate that there are certain elements that they will want to see, and we have given them the guidance that they need to provide specific inputs on those areas that they want our report to include. I will hand over to our acting DG on the other questions that we might have missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think many of the questions have been responded to. I think just to add that we actually had about maybe let me just say 4 consultation sessions, 2 internal to government and 2 with the academia, civil society organization, and labor organization. And the idea, Chair and members, was largely to make sure that we move in the same page in terms of what has been the improvement or the development as it relates to the CEDAW indicators that we needed to localize in South Africa. We're hoping that the shadow reports themselves this time would have really not deviate a great deal to the report that we're providing. NGOs or civil society organizations are entitled to submit those reports, but we believe we've done extensive consultation to make sure that we align in terms of what is the status of implementation of the CEDAW report in the country itself. I think largely maybe to just go up in terms of some of the comments that have been made from member Dr. Lekape. We do welcome some of the comments that have been put forward in how we do. I wanted to just indicate that in many times we don't necessarily come and report back in terms of the CEDAW instrument. It's the number of instruments that we are utilizing that feedback into the CEDAW report, such as the GRPB-NEA report, the NSP, and those instruments in themselves, when we do a consolidation of those, then they feed into the CEDAW report in themselves. But I do believe that it is true that we might want to consider issues around midpoint reporting to assess where we are in terms of some of the concluding recommendations that would have been raised by the CEDAW committee and how we implementing them. And that will also lead to the proposed action program of action in terms of immediate issues that have come through. I think that's a welcome recommendation in how we align those. Retibu has spoken around the issues of the report, the timelines as they are. Indeed, we had been expected to report at the end of 2025, and we were given extension because we have realized we have not consulted extensively, and that is the due date that we are working on of the 30th of June 2026. there are challenges as the report was presented that we had to concede on, be it the issues of gender-based violence in the country, issues of economic activeness of women in the country. We are highlighting those. But I think one of the biggest challenges that we draw on is that even in the localization of the national policy on gender equality and women empowerment, there are still serious gaps. I mean, there's an expectation that every institution of government must have a gender focal point in their offices. And those are some of the constraints that we were talking to say, as long as that mechanism is not fully implemented, it also hamper the muscles or the leverage of the Department of Women to ensure sufficient and sustainable a localization of many of the instruments. But we do want to also say that as much as there might be challenges, there is great strides that have been made in the country in terms of facilitating for the CEDAW report. Even when we're talking about the unevenness of implementation across the country, but there is really great stride. If we look at legislation, policy, those are really credible things that we have done. I think even comparatively to many countries, South Africa is doing exceptionally well, though we do concede that we do have some of the critical challenges that we need to address as a country. We will share, I think it might be important for us to share the frequency of number of the international reports that the department is reporting on. Over and above the CEDAW, the Beijing, the SADC report, the Solemn Declaration. I think there's a number of these reports that we are reporting to, and it will be important that we do share so that the portfolio committee can also know what is actually expected of us as a department in terms of international reporting. The issue around the Chapter 9 institution, I think that perhaps, Chair, maybe is an issue that you might, we might request that you look into and maybe engage with those institutions, whether it's the Human Rights Commission or the CGE, because they do have a different mandate to the mandate that we are facilitating. In actual fact, CGE have put in their report, and perhaps we can then look at how we engage with that. They have a responsibility to oversee the work that we are doing to that effect. But indeed, we do engage with them where we can, but within the boundaries of the various mandates that we have in terms of that work. Other than that, I think many of the issues have been responded, and definitely, Chair, we can attest that we looked at the concluding recommendation of the 2021 report, and in this current report, we are responding to those because that actually is the most critical point for us to respond to, is the concluding recommendation that were made in the last report. I would like to pause there because I think specifics to the questions were provided through Retibu. Perhaps DM, maybe over to yourself if there's further input. DM, may we submit to you through the chair.
Over to you, DM.
Thank you, ADG, and thank you, Chair. And really to thank the team. Chairperson, let me appreciate the comments, reflection by the honorable members of the committee and yours as well. I think it is not an easy task when you look at, the CEDAW convention, which has really quite a number of issues that we need to be focusing on as a country. And indeed, our department has been charged with the responsibility to coordinate regular state party reporting to the United Nations. And that of what the team has been presenting really is about how we align national legislation with international standard, as you have articulated this. But at the heart of this, it's really how we drive structural reforms to achieve gender equality, as all members have articulated. Now, there are, of course, specific comments that were raised by, honorable members, which the team has attempted to respond to in terms of the sequence, what has been covered, into the sixth administration and so forth. But maybe what one can really indicate is that the CEDAW process does allow countries to combine periodic reports. And I think in my opening remarks, I had rehashed the point about, at what period are we reporting to, and the periodic aspect of it, but also the disruption that the whole entire world, have experienced. The state and South Africa is not the only one that would have missed the period of 2020, 2021, given the COVID engagement. But I think what the office and the department has tried to articulate that since inception of this process, what we are required in reporting really takes into consideration the body of work of engaging civil society, engaging other institutions, including, the point that was raised about the role of the Commission for Gender Equality, that was reflected to by Honorable Member, Honorable Letlape, for that matter. But I think maybe let's accept what the points raised by honorable members in terms of how active does the committee and parliament play into its mandate and responsibility for that matter, because parliament's role is also equally important, and its primary role in CEDAW really, when CEDAW provides the country with its consideration and its recommendation to a country, Parliament and like the executive has the responsibility to domesticate the treaty into national laws. But the second responsibility, and this is why I want to make those emphasis, is that Parliament oversees that the executive's compliance and allocation of resources for gender equality is key. And this is why your role is important. But I think it's quite important to look at, yes, the points of sequence and what we have done even this time around, where the process that Parliament has, this report, it cannot start with the committee. It cannot. It starts with the state engaging with stakeholders, the ministerial, all these various departments, as well as the process of cabinet. You would understand that the executive cannot bring a report of this nature to Parliament before it actually takes it to cabinet. So the point is that even when we brought this cabinet immediately after considering, our report, we tabled this on the 18th of May, and we submitted it through the Parliament process itself in the Bill's office. And of course, it is us again as a department, as a ministry, we had to follow up whether this has gone through to the committee. And this is why the committee, then we are having this interaction through yourselves and under your leadership, Honorable Chair. And I'm raising this because our paper trail does explore this process that we had undertaken. Is a 3 weeks, a month long, or 5 weeks and enough time for Parliament to exercise its role? I think that's a very important question, but it's also the points that yourself, Honorable Chair, and Honorable Clapp and others are raising. It could be a better way, better managed. However, I think the state has that responsibility to sequence, the reporting. I'm afraid, Honorable Klappe, that, while we have periodic report, you cannot start right immediately at the beginning. South Africa, like all countries, after submitting now, we're submitting on the 30th of June. CEDAW then outlines a process of which the country report will be considered. And when the country report is considered, it's not only just the state report that is considered. Both civil society who have been a part of or would have been a part of the process, including the Commission for Gender Equality, submit shadow report to CEDAW. So when CEDAW considers reports, and because of nature of civil society, they've got those what we call ECOSOC status, and that's why organizations of that nature, then their reports are also considered. It's against this compliance evaluation and so forth. Only when we receive recommendations and so forth, you then look at a process of underpinning. What does not stop, honorable members, is our work in advancing, resourcing, and ensuring that there's proper implementation of our gender equality aspect. And I think Honorable Tlape was even making comparison of chapter 2, which is our Bill of Rights, and of course, chapter 9, which then makes reference of, a specific aspect of, our own constitution and obligation or promises we make. So there are issues, there are specific issues that honorable members have raised, which are reflected, Madam Chair, on the report, the detailed report. This presentation is just really highlighting the synopsis of issues. And of course, when you look at the issues around training of judges, strengthening victim services, all of this, it's rich into the overall report. Because when you reflect in 2015 versus 2024, when we spoke about, the need of, Tutuzela care centers, but also the expansion of services. So all of these information exist because they form an implementation part of the National Action Plan, the National Strategic Plan, and so forth, including how we keep the agenda of peace and security. And I think it's quite important that we really recognize, this aspect of work. Indeed, what Honorable Member Kaula raises, the issue of what is happening, whether in Limpopo or whether in KwaZulu-Natal, as two members have reflected on the issues of forced marriages and so forth, we have seen a significant drop. This does not mean around issues of forced marriages or harmful practices, which is female genital mutilation as well. We've seen a significant drop, but somehow, there's this small cohort pockets that exist in some of communities and so forth. So those are some of the practices, some which, in fact, when you look at it, they happen in private spaces. So you don't necessarily have departments or in homes, because homes are not regulated. But where there are harmful practices, when they are known and reported, they are dealt with adequately. So I think this is where continuation of society working with government, enforcing, raising awareness, and dealing with these harmful practices matters. Because where families play a role, caregivers play a role, and this is where the knacks of our social fabric is felt adequately. But Madam Chair, yourself and members of the portfolio committee are well vested with these challenges, and I really welcome, on behalf of the ministry and on behalf of the department, that we will possibly look at a better way of sequencing, which we would like to work with yourselves in future, so that you have a full appreciation of what we do, but also what you need to be doing, that we must equally give honor and respect to. But thank you for allowing the department to presenting to yourselves. What we expect is that once internally, through the parliament processes, you provide your own input, we integrate and we finalize the final report for submission. Indeed, we submit on the 30th, and we will comply with those timelines timelines accordingly. We are not late at all. We are meeting the periodic aspect within this seventh administration. And of course, we're combining it with the previous administration period that needed to happen. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, Honorable Members.
Thank you very much, Honorable DM. Let me also thank the acting DG and your team. I think I just want to end off by where I started with my opening remarks. I just wanted to clarify that, in fact, this portfolio committee didn't have 5 weeks with the report because it was ATC'd on the 3rd of June, and I did say it was ATC number 97 of 2026. And then it was referred to our committee on the 4th of June. So today it's 8 days later. But I think the bigger picture that members have been putting forward is that we didn't say that we should be the first ones to be consulted. We understand government processes. We understand that you need to consult your stakeholders. All we are appealing, all honorable members said the same thing, but we are just appealing that when you do start the process of consultation with your academia, your civil society, and your labor, that we also be timeously included in the consultation so that we don't come at the end and effectively become a rubber stamp. We do take the issues that you have to report on very seriously, and we do have an oversight responsibility to play. So I think that is just our appeal. As you said, DM, we want to work together on these issues. I think in closing, I also want to say that if you do have difficulties that you experience in obtaining information from various government departments, in finalizing these reports, we would like to be kept abreast of that, because we have said before we want to engage with departments that don't give you the necessary respect, time, and information that is required. We do want to get any shadow reports if they are received and your responses there too. I think we would like to be kept abreast about when you will appear before the CEDAW committee to present the 6th periodic report. And then we would also like to be given the concluding observations and recommendations emanating from the 6th periodic report by the CEDAW committee, and any follow-up reports once those arise. So I want to then say in conclusion, thank you very much, DM and your team, to all honorable members. Honorable members, we've got a Youth Day on Tuesday. I hope you've got activities that you'll be involved in. Thereafter, you are on your constituency period, so may you have a fruitful and productive constituency period. As we close, I just want Yolanda to quickly come in and table our apologies for today, because we neglected to do so at the start, and it's important for our records. So if you can just quickly do that, Ms. Silly.
Morning, Chair. Yes,
Chairperson.
Chairperson. Oh,
Apologies, Chairperson.
And then Honorable Choke Adonis, yes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, because I realized that there has been an amendment to the agenda, and you are wrapping up. I do sincerely apologize for coming in now. Chairperson, I would just like to put forward that we did receive the notice indicating that our report for the CGE has been extended and moved due to responses received. We are humbly therefore requesting that as this process is undertaken by legal and by various institutions within the National Assembly, that other reports that have been received from CGE and other complaints also be considered, so that when we do meet on the 19th, we are given a consolidated report on all the findings, so that we do not find ourselves going back and forward in terms of what has been received by the Portfolio Committee. Thank you very much, Chair.
That is acceptable. We will do so and make sure that you receive all documents and the legal opinion before you are expected to deliberate on that. Ms. Silly, the apologies.
Thank you, Chairperson. We received an apology from Honorable Shabangu, Chair, Honorable Mailola. Honorable Adams also sent an apology, but she was also in the meeting, Chairperson, so she had to leave early. And also Honorable Miko had to also leave early. And then we have an apology from Honorable Kanyile, also an apology from the Honorable Minister. And I also saw Honorable Tsotetsi in the meeting, Chair, but I see that he also had to leave early. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Silly. Thank you for tabling those responses. DM, we wish you well and your team. Thank you very much for the engagements this morning. Honourable members, thank you for your time. This meeting now stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, DM.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Chair.
Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.